Ahoy! So, I wanted to go over some of the OpenGl kind of fragment shaders and vertex shaders that I'd set up, along with post-processing for the website, for the Metal Asylum website that I created. The first thing that you notice is a nice little soft shadow around the light itself, the candle. And this is actually being generated by two lights, because you notice that there's kind of like that fake little ambient occlusion underneath here. I'm going to go back into the fragment shader that I had created and add that into like the main one, so that all it needs is one light to generate this same effect. And the reason I created my own fragment shader for this candle is, if you go back, well, this is me taking the current settings and just flipping them back over to the old version of, all it does is a little bit of smoothing based on the bias that you give a light. And so the original that I'd set up for the site, it doesn't go this far out. It only goes out to about here from the candle. It doesn't go all the way out. So this is just simply the two lights that I have in the scene, just flipping it over to the old one. So what it's doing is it's just scattering points, so it gets a nice little blur. It's not like sampling based on a given array of sample points. And if you go in and change the shadow quality, you can kind of tell that it's popping a little bit. And that's actually changing the shadow map sizing. So if I go all the way down, that's a 128 by 128. And you notice how kind of blocky it is. And even if I dial it up just that tiny little bit, it's still a 128 size shader. But you notice it still looks reasonably decent for only a 128. So what it runs by default is I think 256 right here, and that's what you're noticing. It's still not that big of a shadow map, because if you dial it up even to like 30 or something, like this is a 1024, it gets nice and smooth. But for the sake of keeping things loading dynamically in a nice little fashion, this will be part of kind of a dynamic scaling system to how much effort or how much computations are running frame by frame. So everything is still a work in progress, I need to say. But if we zoom into the text just by hovering the mouse over it, it kind of moves the camera in. You notice that the shimmer around it is kind of, a nice little bit of movement of sorts. And if I go over to something that you can see a little bit easier, you notice that the vertices are actually shifting. This is created through a vertex shader that it's finding where in the object space the actual glow is. And it's determining whether or not the point should just be stuck to where it is, because you notice all of the vertices around the actual text itself aren't moving. It's only the vertices that are out and away from the text itself. And you notice there's a little bit of shimmer even on this flat shader. That is a fragment shader that I'd set up so that you kind of get a kind of glistening effect that's undulating through the glow itself. So it's a shader that is being ran, and then on top of that is a fragment shader that's going in and modifying the image ever so slightly as it's rendering to screen. So if you were to click on it, it'll actually zoom into, I guess, the temporary menu as of right now. But all this right here is just HTML as it slides in. But the background is actually doing post-processing on the scene itself. So it's still rendering like the book and everything, but as a secondary step, it's going, okay, where should it be cropped? All right, now add like the kind of little bit of a flicker in the background, a glimmering sheen of sorts that's moving around. I thought that'd be better than just like a flat black background or just a gradient, just to add that little bit extra touch to it. I mean, hey, this is the future, right? Everything needs to have that little bit of slight movement in there, right? Nothing is static. So if I click away and go to, and you click on the actual candle itself, you'll notice that it pulls in and it's doing the same type of thing as the menu, that it's actually darkening the background as a secondary step, a post-processing step. Now if I were to hit M, you can notice that it's actually showing you the mask. So it's running a secondary scene of just the candle, and it's rendering that as black and white. Anything that's white gets a little darkening. So you notice that it kind of calls this out, and this is what the background should look like. And after the post-processing gets done with it, it kind of gets a little bit darker, a little bit greener in the far background, a little bit redder in the front. And I thought that would be a little bit more intimate, a little bit more of like you want to see what this candle actually looks like. You know, you can zoom in and see everything about it. And how all the zooming and the movement is going here. You know, you middle mouse click, you can drag it around or wheel in and out, and just click and drag with the left mouse to kind of spin around it. And what that's doing is it's actually moving the candle into camera space. So it's some matrix math to get the candle from where it is, which it's expecting to be in the back on the table, and it's moving it into camera space so that you can move around it or rotate around it. And since it's in camera space, it's basically like working on the candle as though it's at 0, 0, 0 in the scene. It's like just static. So that way, if I rotate around it by clicking on like the right side of the screen or in the middle of the screen, it'll orbit around it. It's rotating it at origin and then finding the matrix of the camera and then moving it into matrix space. So that way you can have like the candle be locked to the actual camera itself. And you notice the camera is actually slightly moving in the background as well, but the candle is nice and static. Well, I think there's a slight little movement, but that's just to keep things a little bit, again, everything a little bit shifty. So you click away, and another thing that I've done to kind of reduce workload and reduce load times and payload on the server or whatever is all of the little particles that you see moving around is actually reading one image map. It loads into memory, and you don't need to load up any other sprite textures. It just goes, give me this set of UVs, like this area right here, load that in, or you know, load this one in, and then that way, as the particles are generated, it picks its own sprite and just says, okay, here we go, use this one. And you notice that they're all ever so slightly a little bit different. And if we were to zoom in here, you can notice even some of them I'm not using any texture on. Like it's just a little bit of a golden kind of block. I thought that kind of gave it a little bit more of a mystical feel. Like something is emanating from another realm that no human can ever possibly understand. You know, just that slight little touch to make things a little bit more quaint, I guess. So these were just some of the things to add a little bit more technological fun. The next step right now is basically having an automatic kind of scaling system. Currently, it does work, but on only the particles. That if things start to slow down on the computer, it starts dialing back how much effort, how many computations, how many calculations that it's doing per frame. So the system works, but I need to implement it into more areas of the site so that a netbook can go on here and it's actually running full speed, or a mobile phone. So that will take some effort, but hey, you know, this is everything is just moving forward in life. You know, making sure you learn more things, you grow in time, you find out about those little aspects that help life just move a little bit easier for you and the people around you. So it's been Kevin Azenga. This is metalasylum.net. You can currently see what you see here just by going to the website. So yeah, hey, have a good day.